Good evening, it's meteorologist Michael Fecka. Welcome back to the 9 p.m. all-weather, all-streaming show that we do here every night during the workdays and on weekends. We stream it out to all of our streaming platforms as well as Facebook and YouTube. So if you're joining us from either place, please feel free to leave us a question or a comment. Hopefully, I'll be able to address it all as I go through the forecast, but if not, I'll go through at the very end and see if I can answer anything individually for you. But let's get started with a look at our headlines. Well, for the rest of the night tonight, it's going to remain mostly clear to partly cloudy, with temperatures dropping back down into the mid-20s. And then looking ahead to the weekend, we'll remain dry here through the end of the work week, but we'll have another storm system move through Saturday and into Sunday, and that'll bring us our next widespread chance for at least a good soaking rainfall, something that we actually need as we are kind of under some abnormally dry conditions or even some lower end drought across parts of the tri-state. And then looking ahead to next week, spring-like temps may be returning for us at least to the first half of next week. So let's break it all down here. We'll start off with a look at our radar across the U.S. Here in, the Central Plains and in the Ohio River Valley, it's fairly quiet. We've got this area of high pressure that's kind of locked up overhead, so that's going to keep us fairly dry here through the next couple of days. We have this kind of weak piece of energy that's going to ride over top of that ridge, and that may move in here tomorrow, which is why we'll see an increase in cloud cover, but we should stay dry. We're not really expecting much in the way of precipitation out of that particular system, but high pressure in place, so it was a nice day. And it was beautiful yesterday, if you remember. Sunshine and temperatures topped out at around 70 degrees across portions of the tri-state. So it was a beautiful day yesterday. Today, not too shabby. We had a cold front move through last night, so that brought our temperatures back down. We only topped out in the upper 40s this afternoon, which is right around average for this time of year. 48 degrees here in Evansville, cooler to the north, 43 up towards Indianapolis, and into the 50s to our south there through Bowling Green. So still a pleasant day by every stretch of the word, I would say. But we have cooled down since that sun has set. So we've dropped down mostly into the lower 30s across the tri-state, with the exception of Madisonville, still sitting at around 38 degrees. We're at around 30 in Evansville and around 31 in Fairfield. And just comparing that to 24 hours ago, that front really cooled us down a lot. We're sitting at around 20 degrees cooler than where we were this time yesterday as that front was actually moving through. But temperatures will continue to drop down into the mid-20s overnight tonight. So any melting that we got throughout the course of the day today, which there isn't a whole lot of snow left to melt outside of those big piles that are still sitting in the parking lots or, on the sides of the roads. They could still leak out some of that snow melt, and it may freeze up again overnight tonight. So just be cautious of some slick spots of black ice, and the winds will remain fairly light as well. But tomorrow, we'll see temperatures warm right back up to where they were pretty much today, topping out in the mid to upper 40s. We're looking at mostly cloudy skies, most likely dry. There's the chance for maybe a sprinkle, but it looks like most of that potential stays reserved off to our north and east. So here's kind of how Thursday looks. We'll wake up, some of those clouds streaming in and out of here. We'll have a mostly cloudy day, perhaps a few breaks of sun within there as well and a sprinkle, but most of that looks to stay off to our north and east. And then we'll start to dry out and clear out again through Friday and into the first half of the weekend before that storm begins to move in. And speaking of that storm, we are expected to get a good amount of rainfall out of it. So the Climate Prediction Center has continued to paint us in the slightly above average category here through the next 6 to 10 days. And it looks like, looking at the time frame of the weekend here, we'll be dry there for Friday. Temperatures already popping back up into the lower 50s. We'll hang out in the lower 50s through the weekend, but that rain begins to move in later in the day on Saturday and continues overnight into early Sunday morning before clearing out by Sunday afternoon. So the first half of Saturday looks fairly dry, and the second half of Sunday looks fairly dry. So if you're going to have any kind of outdoor plans for Valentine's Day, I would try to maybe make it for those separate time frames. Saturday night, unfortunately, not really the best for any outdoor ideas, but it'll still be pleasant for a nice evening inside or maybe a nice dinner. But temperatures, though, will remain on the warmer side, which is good news. So we're expecting just plain old rain from this. We're not even really too concerned about the potential for some thunderstorms. This area of low pressure stays pretty far off to our south, and that warm front doesn't really make it all that much north than the Ohio River. So typically when you're south of that warm front and ahead of that cold front, that's where you get that potential for some thunderstorms. But we're not really within that area of the low pressure system. So this is just kind of going to be a good soaking rainfall for the weekend before it clears out by Sunday afternoon. And in terms of rainfall amounts, we are looking at a good bit here, a good dose, something we haven't really seen in a while. We could pick up maybe anywhere between a widespread ½ an inch to an inch across the tri-state, and there may even be some pockets along the very southern edge of the tri-state that maybe pick up closer to 1.25 inches or 1.5 inches. So we're not too concerned about a flooding threat here in the tri-state. However, it does look like some of that heavier rain stays off to our southwest, which would be over areas like northern Arkansas, southeastern Missouri. They maybe have a little bit more in the way of a flooding threat there, but here in the tri-state, we're not really outlooked for that just yet. And outside of the rainfall, we aren't really outlooked for any hazards here for the next 8 to 14 days either. A lot of the messy weather systems seem to be taking aim on the western half of the United States. So you can see there's a big wind threat here through portions of the south and central plains. You've got the potential for some heavy snowfall across the Great Lakes and into areas of the Mountain West. And then, of course, California has all the warnings out there. They've got wind, they've got rain, and they've got snow in the mountains. But here in the tri-state, it does seem to be fairly quiet over the next couple of days outside of that rain for this weekend. And in addition to that rainfall, we are still outlooked for above average temperatures for the next 6 to 10 days as well. So I talked about spring-like temps potentially returning for next week, and we are looking at that. So here's a look at that 7-day temperature trend. We're right around average for today and tomorrow, topping out in the mid to upper 40s. And then we'll pop back up above average there by Friday, and then we'll stay hanging out in the lower 50s through the weekend. But after that storm clears out of here, winds will still be out of the south through the start of the work week. So it looks like temperatures continue to climb all the way back up, potentially into the 60s again by Tuesday and Wednesday. So very exciting stuff if you're a warm weather lover like me. I was on cloud 9 yesterday, going about doing my errands. I had all the windows open, my car, I got that washed. It's amazing what some warm weather and some sunshine can do for you. But we're looking like we could see at least another warm up there for the start of next week. So here's a look at that 7-day forecast just to wrap it up in a little bow for you. So we'll stay mostly dry here tonight. Clouds begin to move here through tomorrow. We may see a sprinkle out of it, but we're expecting to stay mostly dry. And then we'll stay dry for our Friday. Looks partly to mostly sunny skies. Temperatures topping out in the 50s. And then that rain begins to move in later in the day on Saturday, continues overnight and into early Sunday morning. Before that clears out, we'll be dry through Sunday afternoon. And then we start to feel that warm up again for the start of next week. So let me go ahead and take a look at some of your comments. All right. Suzanne Daly says, good evening. It was sure a cold wind today. Yeah, definitely a lot cooler out there compared to yesterday. Bryce says, drought, it's a muddy mess. Yes, while the very, very top of the soil is fairly wet from that snow melt, however, farther deep down, it's still pretty dry. And that drought monitor takes into account soil content and amongst other things in addition to just what's on the very, very surface. So beneath that muddy mess is very, very dry soil still. So that's why we're kind of in that abnormally dry category or level 1 drought in some portions of southern Illinois. Paula says, good evening. William says he got 0.02 inches by Bossy Field from yesterday's rain, I'm assuming. Chris Smith, yesterday was my day. I want more of them, but it's still nice compared to the freezing weather that we had. Yeah, I mean, anything above freezing at this point is going to feel like a spring day for us. So we've been dealing with that cold weather for so long. Since the middle of January, it's just been so brutally cold and, of course, snowy during that time frame as well. Cheyenne says good evening. Ricky Brown says good evening. Good evening to you guys. When will the rain start Saturday? The time frame could still shift a little bit here, but we're not really looking at that rain moving in until at least later in the afternoon, more towards the evening hours. And then it looks like the bulk of that actually falls overnight and into very early Sunday morning. And then we've got Laura Gray watching from Dawson Springs. Well, thank you all for tuning in here. I don't really have much more for the forecast outside of just, we're tracking out the chances for rain through Valentine's Day weekend and another warm-up for the start of next week. So we can kind of enjoy a more tranquil week of weather ahead of us here outside of the rain. And of course, if you're a fan of the warmth, we've got that on the way too. So I'm going to hop off the live stream and I'll send you guys over to 14 News at 10 for all the latest news and weather headlines. Until then, everybody, stay safe, have a great rest of your night, and I'll see you again tomorrow.